Welcome into OutKick, the show. Absolute bedlam, Sunday afternoon edition. If you're hanging out by the pool, if you're out by the golf course, major breaking news. Joe Biden, in my humble opinion, the worst president in my life, announces just about 30 minutes ago on social media in an open letter that he will not run in 2024. Shortly thereafter, somewhat strangely, after not mentioning Kamala at all in that letter, in a subsequent Twitter post, Joe Biden endorses Kamala Harris and pledges his full support to our sitting vice president. This is absolutely bonkers. It comes on the heels of a highly successful Milwaukee convention. This morning, a new poll came out from the Detroit News Free Press showing Trump up 7 points on Joe Biden in Michigan. The biggest lead, according to the Detroit Press News Press pollster, since 1988 for a Republican in a presidential election in the state of Michigan. So many things to unpack here. But again, breaking news literally in the last 45 minutes and in the last 10 minutes, the endorsement of Kamala Harris. So right now, odds makers would favor Trump versus Kamala Harris. Okay, so many things to unpack about this news that just came down. First of all, your boy was right. I have been saying for some time Joe Biden was not going to be the nominee and that he was going to be forced out by Democrats, that they would cite his mental and physical incapacity and that they would try to find someone else. Make no mistake about why this is happening. This is happening because Trump is kicking Joe Biden's ass, because Democrats are aware that Biden is going to lose, and so they pulled the plug on his candidacy. They were willing to lie about Joe Biden's physical and mental abilities up until June 27th, when Trump embarrassed him in the debate. From that point forward, suddenly Democrats acknowledged what anyone with a functional brain had been able to see over the past several years. Joe Biden didn't have the physical or mental capacity to be president of the United States. So, several things to discuss here. Number one, how in the world is, well, let me take a step back. Number one, I would say, is, are all Democrats going to get in line behind Kamala Harris and make her the unquestioned nominee? That is the number one question at this point in time. Or will other Democrats, whether it's Gavin Newsom, whether it's J.B. Pritzker, whether it's Elizabeth Warren, who knows, will other Democrats step forward and challenge Kamala, or will everyone get in line like the dutiful rig job zealots that they are and support the coup? That is question number one right now. Number one, will Kamala Harris have challengers at the Democrat convention in August in Chicago, or will there be unanimity, essentially, in supporting Kamala as the nominee? That's the number one most important question. Also, building on that, subheading, what is required to contend against Kamala Harris? In theory, there are 3,000 plus Democrat delegates who are now free because Joe Biden has said he's not running to pick their own nominee. What is required to run in Chicago if it is a contested convention and if Kamala Harris is going to have competition? You have to get at least 300 delegates. This is according to the Washington Post. I just shared this on Twitter. 300 Democrat delegates, roughly 10% of the overall numbers out there, and only 50 of them can be from one state. In other words, one large state like California couldn't all say, hey, we're supporting Gavin Newsom. He would have to have support from other states. Does that make sense? So you need at least 300 delegates to contest, and you need at least 50 from more than one state. That is, you can only have 50 from one state, so you can't just pile all your delegates in one place. Simple majority wins the nomination. So I believe there are 3,900, or ultimately, if the super delegates come in, the other complicating factor is the super delegates, that's the Bill and Hillary Clintons of the world, they don't come in until a second ballot. So the first ballot has around 3,000 voters, and then I believe we go to roughly 3,700 going forward from there. So the number one most important question that has to be answered right now is, will Kamala have contenders attempting to be the nominee, or will every Democrat get in line behind her? That's question one. Question two. Now that Joe Biden has acknowledged that he doesn't have the mental or physical capacity to run for re-election, there will be a massive groundswell asking, how in the world are we going to have Joe Biden as president of the United States for the next roughly 6 months? And I think Democrats will actually want to, certainly Kamala is going to want this, have Kamala Harris ascend to the presidency and run as the sitting incumbent president of the United States. So second question, one, will Kamala be challenged? Two, will Joe Biden be able to remain in office for the next 6 months, or will Democrats demand that he step down? Okay? Those are the two most important questions I would say that are out there right now. Now, we have to answer those, and that is what is going to have to occur. I also want to pause for a moment and just consider with all of you the chaos that the last 24 days, roughly, have entailed in this country. On June 27th, Joe Biden was knocked out, had his political career ended in the debate against Donald Trump. For the last 24 days, he's been trying to recover from being knocked out. Now, July 21st, he announces that he will not run. Rough echoing of time associated with LBJ's decision in 1968 as the sitting president of the United States, then when he announced that he was not going to run. Again, if you listen to Clay and Buck or you watch this show, I nailed this. I told you that this is what was going to happen. Now, Biden actually held on longer than I thought he would after Trump knocked him out in that debate on June 27th. But ultimately, Democrats were able to stage a coup, an insurrection, and replace Joe Biden. A couple of other things here. 24 days since the debate. Trump survives an assassination attempt. Republicans hold their convention. We just got back from Milwaukee. J.D. Vance is named as the vice presidential candidate. And now, boom, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, announcing that he will not run for re-election. Several immediate political fallouts. Again, I told you the number one question, will Kamala have challengers? Much of that will be resolved, I think, in the next 24 hours. Number two question will be, how can Joe Biden remain in office if he is not able to run for re-election? If he doesn't have the mental and physical capacity to run for re-election and stand for election in November, how in the world is he going to be able to remain president of the United States? Those are the two most important questions. Larger political analysis, and I'm going to go into the live reactions that are taking place right now in the gambling markets, poly market in particular, and I'll give you the absolute latest. This morning, Biden had his advisors out on television saying that he was not going to step down and that he was going to remain the candidate. This morning, there appears to have been no leak whatsoever to the statement from Joe Biden that was put up. Why did he not endorse Kamala Harris in the first statement? Very strange. Why does the second statement come out? And what was going on such that Joe Biden was having his advisors this morning on all the talk shows on Sunday out and about saying that he was going to refuse to step down. What happened here? What payments did Joe Biden get? I guarantee you that he now is going to be the head of a foundation. Jill and Hunter are going to have jobs for the rest of their lives. His presidential library probably just got endowed with hundreds of millions of dollars. Make no mistake, there was a negotiated buyout, much like you would see with a college football coach, when the college football coach steps down. It's probably the easiest analogy we have for effectively someone in a position of power who is forced out and gets paid along the way, okay? Now, several things that I think are really significant from a political perspective. How in the world can you attack Donald Trump as a unique threat to democracy and as an insurrectionist based on what occurred on January 6th when the Democrat Party just staged their own insurrection and coup and removed the sitting president of the United States, who had attained all of the delegates, 87% of them, and had virtually no one challenge him as he ran for the nomination? Any argument by any Democrat that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy is out the window. The reason why I knew this would happen is Democrats' only principle is the pursuit of power. That is the underlying lesson that they follow and remain committed to no matter what. If Joe Biden, even in his mentally and physically deficient self, were still in the lead, if he were leading in all the battleground states, despite the fact that he does not have the ability to do the job, they would not have forced him out. This is about Biden losing, Democrats panicked, and the belief that they have to ride with a new leader. But they didn't care about traditional notions of decorum. They didn't care about democracy. They didn't care about the tens of millions of people who showed up to vote in the primary, 87% of whom supported Joe Biden. They told everybody out there that Dean Phillips, who ran as one of the only contenders, a Minnesota congressman, when Dean Phillips said he doesn't have the mental or physical capacity to be president, he was stonewalled. Everyone called him a liar. When I said recently after the G7 that Biden was lost and wandering and did not have the mental and physical capacity to be president, I was attacked by the entire left-wing media sphere. NBC News wrote a story accusing your boy of spreading cheap fakes for sharing videos of Biden clearly not able to do the job. All of that disappeared on June 27th when they could no longer lie to you. If Kamala Harris is the nominee, she has been lying to you for years, claiming that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack behind closed doors. She lied. Everyone in the Democrat Party lied to you about Joe Biden. If you are an independent voter, you are open to making a choice for who should be the next president of the United States, and you claim that you care about truth and honesty, the biggest lie that any of us have been told about a presidential contender, candidate, or leader in our entire lives was the one that the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, and all of their Democrat cohorts in the media lied and said Biden was sharp as a tack behind closed doors. They lied to you until June 27th happened, when it was no longer possible to lie anymore. So many of you out there in the American voting public saw what happened with Biden and decided that you were going to vote for Trump or RFK Jr. or another third party. And at that point in time, Democrats panicked and they were willing to tell you the truth suddenly. But if they lied to you for 4 years, which they did, I did not lie to you. Some of you may not like me. You may not like my politics. I nailed this. I told you exactly what was going on. I told you how I saw this playing out. I still have questions about whether Kamala is going to be the nominee because, and this is a significant part of the politics here, I actually think Kamala is going to poll worse in the places where she needs to poll the best. I don't think older white voters in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which is the only pathway by which Democrats can win right now, I don't think they're going to respond better to Kamala Harris than they are to Joe Biden. I would expect that Kamala Harris will pick, I'm going to give you a name, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, and desperately hope that with him as the vice president, she can win the state of Pennsylvania. I would be stunned if she doesn't pick a Democrat in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania as her running mate. She will desperately try to win that state. Here's the problem. I think Kamala Harris doesn't really motivate black voters very well, particularly black men who recognize that she's a side chick. She got her start in politics by banging Willie Brown, the Democrat married mayor of San Francisco. She doesn't have any kids of her own. She's married to a Jewish lawyer. She's half black. She was raised in wealth and elite circles. Her mom and dad were rich. She isn't like most normal people out there. My parents never made $50,000 a year. Kamala Harris's parents did. They're Afro-Caribbean. She's half Indian. I'm telling you, if Kamala Harris is the nominee, they gave her an easy pass in 2020. When you actually dive into what she has done, she has failed her way up. She is the ultimate diversity, equity, and inclusion candidate. And we just saw what DEI does at the Secret Service. It nearly gets the president killed. I voted for Obama. He was a very accomplished dude, super smart. Went to Harvard, Harvard Law Review. Kamala Harris, not that bright, not that accomplished, doesn't have a family of her own, never had kids, got her start in politics as the side chick of a Democrat San Francisco mayor. She is DEI personified. She's continued to get promoted, even though her overall abilities don't suggest that this is all going to play out, okay? So I think Kamala, as all of this settles, if she is the nominee, I think she's going to lose worse than Biden did. The way that I would classify it is, you guys know I love sports and I come from a sports background. I've said this on the air, but if you haven't heard me, Kamala's a backup quarterback. Joe Biden's knocked out of the game. For those of you out there who love watching football, the backup quarterback comes in and he's got usually a higher ceiling because he's healthy, but he's got a lower floor too because there's a reason he was the backup. Kamala ran for president in 2020 and dropped out before a single vote was cast because Democrats overwhelmingly rejected her. Remember that. So could Kamala come out house on fire in a good way and actually rally the Democrat identity politics base by focusing on abortion and by focusing on race and shattering the glass ceiling and all those things? Yes. I can make you a case that she could come out and be on fire in a good way and that she would excel better. She would succeed. She would perform at a higher level than Joe Biden. I can also make you the case that given the panic that this situation is entailing, that the American public is going to see this as a bait and switch. They're going to feel like Kamala aided the dishonesty of claiming that Biden was still on the ball. And they're going to say, actually, we dislike Kamala, and she's actually going to underperform Joe Biden. That's the way that I think this is most likely to go, particularly in the areas which are battleground states. I think Kamala is going to underperform what Joe Biden would have done. There's an argument she'll exceed him. I think Biden's range was less significant. He had a higher floor, but a lower ceiling. Kind of the way we talk about draft picks. Kamala has a higher ceiling, but also a lower floor. In other words, she's a bigger risk and a bigger gamble, and the range of potential outcomes she could provide is more substantial. It's also a tough bait and switch. Suddenly they have to pull all the ads, and suddenly say, oh, by the way, we said Joe Biden was the choice, but actually it's Kamala Harris. Expect for many of the media figures, Democracy Dies in Darkness, Washington Post, to come out with 10,000-word profile pieces on how amazing Kamala is. Expect the New York Times to do the same. But I actually think she's going to underperform in the battleground states, which is why I think she's going to desperately go grab Josh Shapiro. Now, this is also why I question if Kamala is going to be the actual nominee. I think what you'll see is a lot of polling that they try to rush out saying Kamala's a lot stronger than Biden was. Remember, that's partly because nobody's ever been attacking Kamala aggressively. She hasn't been at the top of the ticket, so there hasn't really been attacks leveled on her yet. And I think other people are going to look around and say this is not the best ticket we can put forward. Kamala is too connected to Joe Biden because she now has to run on all the disastrous decisions that Joe Biden has made. She's a part of the incumbent ticket. I actually think, and this is what I said on the radio a while back, the actual decision that Democrats should make is to wipe out Biden and Kamala and go with two entirely new people. Yes, it's a gamble, but what I said they should do is go double Midwest ticket. Their only path to winning the election is to try and get Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in the boat. And that maybe Josh Shapiro with Gretchen Whitmer, both popular Democrat governors, if you paired them on a ticket, could they deliver Michigan and Pennsylvania? Maybe. Then the entire election could come down to who wins Wisconsin. This is also why I said I liked the J.D. Vance pick, because Trump picked the strongest, in my opinion, Midwestern candidate that he could have found in J.D. Vance, who I bet, as we just saw in the rally in Michigan, they're going to park right there in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, and have J.D. Vance trying to appeal to everyone there. Okay. Other thoughts out there. Again, I'm not on live right now. I don't know if the team that got me up and running can come in. As you can well imagine, my entire phone blew up about an hour ago. And everybody out there is now lining up behind Kamala Harris, it appears. But as I have said, the question here is, will there be challenges? Speaker of the House, Johnson, just said that Joe Biden needs to resign. If Joe Biden is not fit to run for president, he is not fit to serve as president. He must resign the office immediately. That is from the Speaker of the House. President Trump has reacted. Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve, and never was. He only attained the position of president by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. All those around him, including his doctor and the media, knew he wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. And now look what he's done to our country, with millions of people coming across our border totally unchecked and unvetted, many from prisons, mental institutions, and record numbers of terrorists. We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly. Make America great again. Jayapal has endorsed Kamala Harris. I am running through to see. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Says, I will be giving a press conference today at 5 at the Kennedy compound, Hyannisport, Massachusetts. That is its own wrinkle. Could RFK Jr. be announcing that he is going to support Donald Trump and end his third-party candidacy? That wouldn't be crazy to me. I would be stunned beyond belief if he's going to endorse Kamala Harris. Remember, RFK Jr. was forced out. I am sorry, just trying to make sure that I see everything, that the way that this is going to to be playing out. Again, the question is, will there be everyone lining up right now behind Kamala Harris? That's the number one question. Number two question, as I told you, is will Joe Biden be able to stay in office for the remainder of her time? Doctor, let me just mention this too. Biggest loser here, maybe two of them, Dr. Jill Biden. Will anybody start finally calling her out for the willful, wanton elder abuse that she enabled for the past several years? She wanted to be first lady. She wanted the power. She wouldn't let Joe step down. And how about Hunter? One of the decisions Joe's going to have to make, and he's going to have to make it quick, is he going to pardon Hunter Biden or not? That is the question. Is he going to pardon his son? And you might say, well, he can wait till after the election. Can he? Or is the coup going to demand that he step down? Because I think that they would like to have Kamala Harris running as the incumbent president of the United States. So all of this is going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. Kamala has never, remember this, Kamala has never received a single vote in any primary to be president of the United States, and she now potentially is going to be the nominee for the Democrat Party. Not one voter in American history has ever been able to vote for Kamala Harris to be their nominee, and now Democrats are potentially going to be running her. Again, totally scrolling through to check and see how all of these break down. All of this is going to be utterly fascinating to see how it all breaks down going forward. Again, the two big questions: will there be any challengers to Kamala? In which case there would be a contested convention. You need at least 300 delegates. Second question, and at least only 50 of those can come from one state. Second question, is Joe Biden going to be able to stay in as the nominee? I think my prediction, and I've been right on a lot of this so far. In fact, I got a bunch of stake bets to cash in on. Buck Island has been inundated. Carol Markowitz, my friend, I had a lot of bets with a lot of people out there about whether Biden was going to be the nominee. My bet is I think that Trump is going to beat Kamala Harris worse than he would beat Joe Biden. Because I think Joe Biden is a known quantity, at least. I think Kamala Harris, as people become more familiar with her and recognize what's going on with the bait and switch, I think it's going to be even messier. But right now in the gambling markets, Kamala Harris, 82% chance to be the nominee, 9% other, 4% Michelle Obama, 3% Gavin Newsom, 3% Hillary Clinton. And the argument I'm seeing that Democrats are trying now is, oh, look how old Donald Trump is. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. Age is just a number. In the straight up, by the way, the gambling markets got it right on Biden dropping out. He was around a 75% chance, got up to 90% chance on Friday that he was going to drop out. Thursday. And it was around 75% today when that report came out. Right now, 65% chance that Trump will win. 28% chance that Kamala Harris will win. This is on Polymarket with over $300 million bet. 3% chance another Democrat politician will win. 2% Gavin Newsom. 2% Hillary Clinton. 2% Michelle Obama. So all of this, it feels very organized. The palace coup worked. The insurrection forced Joe Biden down. They waited until Trump and J.D. Vance were officially a go. Remember, Biden's got COVID right now, despite the fact that he's probably gotten 9 different COVID shots. So, Adam Brown, my helper, says Whitmer and Newsom both thanked Biden on X. But so far, I have not seen. That will be the next shoe to drop. Will Gavin Newsom, will Gretchen Whitmer, will all of these individuals step forward and endorse Kamala Harris, or will they say that they believe there needs to be a Democrat process in play and allow someone to be selected? That is the next shoe to drop. Continuing, though, will be the battle over whether or not Joe Biden should remain in office. And leaving aside the fact that certainly he's not mentally and physically capable of being president of the United States, I think the calculus from Democrats on whether he stays in or not will be whether Kamala Harris benefits running as the incumbent. It's my belief that she probably would. Or is the calculus let Biden finish and argue that Kamala Harris should have to earn her way to the presidency? Is it too much of a rig job to suddenly promote her to president of the United States as well? And remember, think about how Biden would have to step down. What I've believed, and I've said this on the show for a long time, is I think a part of Biden agreeing to step down, I think that Biden agreed to step down with the understanding that Democrats would not force him to leave early, because he doesn't want the Richard Nixon throwing up the peace sign, climbing into the helicopter. Jill and Hunter don't want the embarrassment of Joe Biden going down like Nixon. They don't want him taking off and flying away. I have said for some time that to me, Joe Biden was an accidental president. He was Jimmy Carter. And a lot of those analogies now apply in that Jimmy Carter got elected president because of Watergate. And then he got wiped out in 1980 by Ronald Reagan. The only reason he was president was Watergate. I think the only reason Biden was president was COVID. Democrats managed to drag him across the finish line with a rigged election thanks to their ownership of all the social media sites and all the mainstream media. They managed to terrify everybody with COVID, something that was going to have its way with the American public and then go away like every virus that has ever existed. But it hit in an election year. They terrified enough suburban moms. But then Joe Biden came in and he failed on the southern border. He failed at keeping us out of war in Europe and the Middle East. He failed at the overall crime rates, allowing criminals to run rampant across many of our cities. Inflation went to 9%, meaning that the average person out there has not been able to have their wages keep pace with the overall inflation rate in this country, which everything has gone up 20 some odd percent since Biden got into office. He has failed at virtually everything that he has touched. And now many of the people that would have rendered a verdict on him running as an incumbent and chosen to go with Trump, who did a better job in office, now Democrats have pulled the ripcord and they are trying to install Kamala Harris as a nominee without a single vote from a Democrat ever having occurred to allow her to be president. It's really an extraordinary time. Again, Clay and Buck will be live all week. Who knows what might happen next? OutKick will be right on the front lines of all of this as well. I'm getting ready to decide where I want to go eat my steaks. I told you this was happening. Biggest, I think, lie that has been told associated with the presidency in our lives was that Joe Biden was mentally and physically capable of being president. June 27th, the debate there ended all of this, and historically is going to be looked back on as one of the most colossal failures of any president ever. Because remember, the Biden administration demanded that early debate. They felt like Joe was going to go out and establish his dominance. Instead, he collapsed. If they had had the normal debates in September and October, none of this would have been possible. They set themselves up for replacement and destruction. It's an extraordinary story. The decision to try to put President Trump in prison has blown up in their faces. The lawfare is one of the biggest failures ever. They claim that Trump was a unique threat for democracy. As Trump said yesterday, he took a bullet for democracy. But Democrats have now tried to put their chief political opponent in prison for the rest of his life. And now when they recognize that they are losing, they are trying to put a new candidate in that has never received a single vote in her entire career. If that's not a direct threat to democracy, I don't know what is. The party that claims that Trump's the biggest threat to democracy in our lives tried to put him in prison for the rest of his life, I think led to someone trying to kill him. And now they are trying to put a new candidate into office who has never received a single vote for president of the United States in her entire career. It's really unbelievable, yet it appears Kamala is likely to be the nominee. Again, we wait to see whether anyone will challenge her. I am Clay Travis. Stay tuned. Props to the OutKick team for being able to get this show up and running on incredibly short notice. This has been OutKick the show, and I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. Be back with you tomorrow unless something else crazy happens. Hope you all have fantastic Sundays. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP.